You know, I'm going to be very disappointed if Michael Fassbender isn't nominated at the Oscars next February, because that man is an incredible actor. He has never once failed to disappoint me. Well, okay, maybe except in Prometheus. Just look at the kind of movies that he's been in. He was terrific in Inglourious Basterds, he did a brilliant job at the X-Men movies, and yes, okay, he did win Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars for 12 Years a Slave, but I will be very, very annoyed if he doesn't win it again for Steve Jobs. Because frankly, if he's not even nominated, I will officially lose my entire faith within the Oscar Academy. So Steve Jobs is a biographical film about the man described in the title himself, Steve Jobs, whilst he faces life-changing decisions in an attempt to get his personal life back together. Now this is a lot different to what you see in most biographical movies nowadays. Not only does it go down the Lincoln route and focus on what they were more famous for, but also we get to see a side to them which was never actually touched upon by the media. We get to delve more into his personal life, and we even get to see more of his mixed kind of relationships that he has with his friends and family, especially with his daughter, which I personally found more intriguing than anything else. Despite the fact he does say numerous times in the film, "That's not my daughter, there is no way that that is my daughter," you actually do see a bit of an inkling in him that he's starting to think, maybe this girl could actually be mine. I personally really liked this side of the film because at the same time we got to see not just what he was most famous for, but at the same time we got to see a truly, really darker side to him that we never actually saw in the past. This is a very dialogue heavy film as well, but most of the time, if there is a lot of dialogue that the film mostly focuses on, then it can get very boring after a while. But in this instance, there is quite a big exception. You're continuously intrigued and you want to learn more about what Michael Fassbender has to say and the point of views that he and the other characters are constantly putting across. It completely absorbs you in and it actually makes you feel like you're a part of the conversations that these guys are having. This is also a very good example of a 3-act story. Each act takes place in a separate year in the days leading up to the launch of a new Apple product. With Steve Jobs, it does feel like this 3-act structure is bringing in a beginning, a middle and an end, which a 3-act story should have. You've got the beginning in 1984, the middle in 1988 and the ending in 1998, which ties together everything else that happened in the story. Did I also say that this is directed by Danny Boyle? Because it is. I think it's fairly easy to say that he's going to want to put this up there with loads of other amazing films that he's made, such as Trainspotting, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, Slumdog Millionaire and 127 Hours. There's an all-star cast in this as well and they all pull off their roles brilliantly. You've got Seth Rogen playing Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple. Now you wouldn't normally expect to see him in something like this, especially given the fact that so many people have gotten used to seeing him in comedy movies. That's why it's so refreshing to see him put on a more serious face. Other actors and actresses that gave off really good performance would be Kate Winslet, who played Apple's marketing executive, and Jeff Daniels, who also did a really good job playing in The Martian earlier on this year. One other thing that I really enjoyed about this was how the screen looked in the first 2 acts. You can still see a very grainy image in the background which makes you feel as if you're there in the 1980s with them, which was actually how a lot of movies looked like back then. The cameras that were used in that time period are hardly used nowadays because we can get a much better image using digital cameras. But given that they used camera techniques to trick you into thinking that you were in a completely separate time period, made the experience even better. The film was made remarkably well, however it is dialogue driven, which a lot of people would consider to be very boring. So if you're not interested in that sort of thing, I would rather watch something a bit more action packed with maybe less focus on the dialogue, then this may not be your cup of tea. I, however, thoroughly enjoyed it, and so for that I'm going to give Steve Jobs an A. I don't trust the Oscar Academy that much anyway, however I am hoping that this film gets at least 1 nomination, either for Best Picture, or Best Actor, or Best Supporting Actor, because everyone involved with this put their heart and soul into it. Guys, thank you so much for watching this review. Let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts on Steve Jobs were, and other than that, I've been Tartarus Pictures, and I will see you later. Good night.